Teachers. Oh, I'm live and there's something extra in the back. I'm going to much better. Anyways, so today is the end of Teacher Appreciation Week, and I have been a teacher for quite a while. But today is more story time about the teachers that help shape my future. And so you don't want to miss this episode because I'll also be giving you tips on how to spot a good teacher and how to, you know, work well with a teacher to help shape your children's future. Stick around, good stuff. Hi, thank you so much for joining Learning Quest. I am TD Flenaugh. We have this podcast to help parents and caregivers with having the resources, strategies, and to make sure that their children are on track for learning and to stay on success. Hey, hopefully it's all good in the hood. I have heard a little crackling. I hope we don't have any technical issues. But thanks so much for joining us. This is episode 98 of the Falling for Learning podcast in the end of its second season. Big things happening. I'm on deadline to take care of some big things, and so I will let you know about that in the near future. But so that's why I'm going live today because I'm getting it done even when I'm feeling tired. Because, of course, I want to shout out to my teachers. I'm going to talk about four specific teachers that are really stand out. Now, I've had a lot of teachers. I would say that most of my teachers were like really great teachers. But there's four that I'm going to talk about today that were really amazing and really deserve a lot of credit as far as shaping some of the things that I am even doing to this day. So the first teacher that I want to talk about is my second grade teacher, Mr. Bew. I feel like if you've been following me, you've heard about him before. We are Facebook friends, and maybe one day he'll grace us with his presence on my podcast. We'll see. But he was such a great teacher. One thing that he always taught, every day we talked about potential. Like we have the inside of us, the ability to do whatever we wanted to do. And so he really talked to us about our future. He really gave us time just to talk, just ask questions about whatever we wanted to ask questions about. And he talked to us, on a range of things about real life. During that year, my grandfather had passed away, my father's father, and I hadn't met him, but my dad was obviously very sad. And I told him about it. And I don't know how soon after or before he read this book called The Fall of Freddie the Leaf. And it was a book about death, but it was about how everyone dies, everything dies. And there was a leaf on a tree named Freddie. And, he had, over time prepared to die just like other um, leaves had died because of the seasons and all of that, just like the cycle and the circle of life. So he really, was really good about teaching us, just like being honest with us about different things and talking to us about whatever we wanted to talk to him about. And so that was Mr. Bew. He was really about that. Later on in the school year, he also started talking to us every day about unique, right? Us being, each one of us being different, and we have gifts that are unique to us that only we have, and using our potential to do whatever we want to do is really important. So putting those two things together really helped me to have perspective about who I was and who I could be and believe in that ability, right? And my ability to make things happen, to get work done and to focus in on what I want to happen in my life. So Mr. Bew is, really just stands out to me. I'm still in contact with him. Like he even came, and took me out to dinner, my family, for my 40th birthday. He also came before that too. He came to California. He came to our house, and my husband probably is the one who cooked the dinner. But he wasn't my husband at the time. But later on, of course, he became my husband. But so so many great memories just to stay in contact with him. Um, Yeah, so those are just some things like really not always sticking straight to the curriculum, but being very um, good about exploration for us, right? And if you are teaching your kids at home, that's also something you should be thinking about is exploration. Really letting the kids drive sometimes the things that you're talking about and studying is really important. The second teacher that I wanted to talk about, and I've talked about her a lot as well, is Miss Nelson. Um, Miss Nelson was my fourth grade teacher, and I actually didn't know that she was black. She was very light skinned, light complexion, and but she was really a great teacher. She was really serious. And when I was in fourth grade, that was the year, that we had some separation in my family from, my mother. And, but what really stood out to me is just how she treated us like scholars. Like school was important and we were important and we could do these important things. And that's what it really got to me about her. Now, in my district, often kids read To Kill a Mockingbird in eighth grade or ninth grade, maybe seventh grade. But when I was in fourth grade, we read To Kill a Mockingbird. Now we were the highest reading group, but that's what we read. And I just really feel like that's when I found out about her being black because she was telling us about how she had was passing in a swimming pool, and one of the white boys in the neighborhood was saying, she's black, and then so she couldn't go to that swimming pool anymore. And so she was telling this story like in the middle of, in class, and in the middle of class, I was like, "Well, wait a minute, are you saying you're black?" And she's like, "Yeah, like what did you think I was?" And I was like, I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't thought about her race. I didn't know that she was black. There was another black boy in the class, and Frank, he was said that he thought she was like Asian, but you know how when you're that age, you just say Chinese or whatever. Because there wasn't a lot of diversity in Alaska, right? So, we were the two black kids, and then we didn't even know we had a black teacher. So, and we didn't discuss this. Neither Frank and I did not discuss like we had a black teacher. But I was just very surprised, and obviously the rest of the class realized I was very surprised too. And maybe they didn't know either. I have no idea what they thought because I was just surprised. But I was very well acquainted with Ms. Nelson because if you don't know, I'm cold phobic. I am against cold weather. And I did grow up in Alaska, just to tell you. Okay. So, part of my becoming a teacher, I do attribute to my cold phobia. Okay. I went out for recess, was supposed to, but I obviously found many ways to help teachers during recess time. And I help grade papers and help put together bulletin boards and organize things and all of those things. And of course, those skills are still used to this day. And so, we talked about a lot of things, and she was very helpful. I remember she even gave me like a hygiene little packet because I guess I was a little stinky. So, just some information. I was a little embarrassed, but she was all about the business for me. To back things up a little bit, um, going back to not having that much diversity, my second grade teacher, Mr. Abu, back to him, I realized when I got in his class, I had moved away from Fairbanks, which was, a city in Alaska, into North Pole, Alaska, which was less diverse, not a bunch of diversity in Fairbanks, but much more than in North Pole. So I was the only black kid in that class, and I was feeling a certain kind of way. So I don't know, future nerd or current nerd, forever nerd, whatever. I found a book. I, you know, impressed upon my mom that I had to have this book. And I got the book, and it's called Why Are People Different? And my teacher read that book to the class. I read it, I wanted him to have it. He said he read the book every year to his class. And um, why do I cry on this podcast sometimes? Not always, but sometimes. But anyway, when I became a teacher, he sent me the book. And I actually didn't remember it until he gave me the book. He sent me this book. And that's when I remembered, but I didn't remember it before then. So I was like, yikes. I don't know who I was in second grade. I mean, a lot was going on. But yes, I just had the forethought, like I gotta get a book for my teacher, and why are people different? And it talks about, I think I maybe passed that book on to someone else, but it was a great book, obviously, and it was amazing. Anyway, enough of that. Anyway, one other thing about Mr. Bew, he sometimes if I was having challenges, he would like come and talk to me. Even when I was in Miss Nelson's class, if he was like having music, he was like, "Let me," I guess Miss Nelson or somebody would talk to him about my challenges, and he'd like, I would be able to go and talk to Mr. Bew during my like little upset times, and that was amazing. Like he just kind of followed up with me. Um, One thing that we still laugh about to this day, my mother and I, is that Mr. Bew on my report card said, Taisha is finally learning that she's human and she can make mistakes or something to that effect. So, because if you also know about me, I am a recovering perfectionist, and I was full-fledged perfectionist back then. And, I would get upset if I missed something on a paper and whatever. So he was, just giving a little report card comment about how I was learning how to accept mistakes. There was many more years of me torturing myself over not trying to make mistakes, but I had some inkling of getting over it in second grade. Little moments, I guess. Back to Miss Nelson. Miss Nelson was really good at she really like in fourth grade prepared me for college. Like, how crazy is that? She told me about academic scholarships, and I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, which I only knew about sports scholarships before Miss Nelson. But I already did really well in school, really would get, basically had a little meltdown if I got less than perfect. And so to know that you could get a scholarship for getting good grades was just amazing to me. And of course, you know, that's what I aspired to do from that moment. And of course, that happened. I got an academic scholarship going to college. Um, she told me the courses to take. She told me the like to challenge myself with, hard courses, advanced math, and I did go all the way to calculus and when I was a junior in high school. And she also told me about activities to take. And she was like, whatever activities you take, make sure you get leadership roles, make sure you stay involved with it for 4 years or more, or 2 years or more. She really was telling me about what to do in fourth grade. And I remembered those things. She even was specific about give people 2 weeks ahead of time before your scholarship. You're going to need, she was saying you're going to need recommendations. And you know. I'll get into this right after these messages.
The Rewrite Method and the Rewrite Method Workbook are your go to resource for helping kids to learn to fall in love with writing. It has the tips, tools, resources, strategies, and skill building activities to help kids fall out of writing hate and into loving to write. Get your book set today.
Okay, so okay, as far as it came to asking for recommendation letters and recommendations for scholarships, because sometimes it's more than just a letter. They may have a checklist or a rating form for the teacher. So she said, give them 2 weeks ahead of when it's due. So if it's due on the 15th of June, tell them that you need it by June 1st. Ask them 2 weeks ahead of time. So you're asking them on May 15th. And then she said, make sure you write them a thank you letter afterward, right? So these are things that my family wasn't teaching me. Like she was teaching me these things. And, um, that was amazing. Now, she actually had my sister, who's 4 years younger than me. So she had my sister 4 years later. I was in eighth grade, headed to high school. And my mother was at the time doing a beauty school, cosmetology school, right? So Miss Nelson would go get her hair done at the cosmetology school. Now this I think is like so like genius, right? Because she did not get her hair done by my mom, right? Because that could be complicated if she doesn't do a good job, blah, blah, blah. She got it done by someone else. And then she went to my mom and talked to my mom about me and was like, what class is she going to get it for high school? She needs to take advanced class. And then she told me to take them. But again, that's not all within my realm of control. A lot of that has to do with parents, right? And in, in middle school, I was in advanced math. I was taking algebra in as an eighth grader, right? And so I had taken pre-algebra in seventh grade, algebra as an eighth grader, and I advocated for that. Was able to do it. Um, so then in high school, I wanted to take like algebra two or whatever the sequence is after that. And my mom was telling her, oh well, her progress report, she didn't get an A, she got a B. They're saying that maybe she needs to take algebra again. And they're like, no, they're gonna say that, but she needs to be in the more challenging classes to make sure she's prepared for college and all of that. And she said, so they're gonna tell you that, but you make sure you tell them she's gonna take it. And of course I got an A by the end, but they make the course decisions before that. And she's like, and I didn't even know this part. Like, this is like an update because my mom told me maybe like, I feel like 2020. So, not, very recent. That she told me like that Ms. Nelson was like following up, telling her exactly what the school officials were going to say and what to tell them in response. So, she was so amazing. Like, who does that, right? And knew not to get her hair done by my mom because, again, you may not, it may complicate the relationship, but got it done by someone else and made sure she followed up and talked to her and told her what to say. Because parents, you don't always know what to do to advocate for your kids. You don't know the inner workings. Some parents will try to tell me they think they know what's going on and they don't. And they think they know, but they don't. So listen to the teachers. And even though you think it may not make sense or you've heard how it was before, things change. And in a particular school district or a particular area, you don't know how it works. So let the teacher guide you and listen because they know. Okay. And so I got into my advanced courses and all of that kind of stuff. And of course, when I went to college, it wasn't a big deal because I had been taking challenging classes. So like, as I was going through matriculating, challenging myself, everything was just a little step up. and I was never overwhelmed. And when I was, well, yeah, I was overwhelmed in calculus, but really that had to do with the teacher. And I'm not going to say her name, but that was the teacher. She was messing up. But I got tutoring because I was a tutor, so I have access to tutors. So anyway, I'm not gonna poo poo on the teacher, okay? But I don't remember her name anyway. But anyway, so I've talked about Miss Nelson. She also was really helpful about really taking me through the writing process and really taking ownership of the writing process. Writing on napkins, writing on scratch pieces of paper. When ideas come to you, that's when you write them. Like, when you wake up from a dream, write it down. Like, she was about business when it came to writing and being a scholar and what it meant to be a scholar and about studying. I mean, and so she taught me so much, and I just really love her for that. She was a serious teacher. So some people, so this is what I want to say. Like, I feel like Ms. Nelson, like, I don't think I am the teacher that any of my teachers were that I'm talking about, but I feel like I see a lot of myself in Miss Nelson. Like, I'm very serious, and I may not be like that sweet popular teacher, but I'm about business. Like, I'm gonna help you get what you need, right? I'm going to push you and challenge you to do more than you wanted to do. And of course, you may not at the time really love it. Now, because of the super nerdiness I have, I loved it. But some of you may not love it, right? You're like, okay, she's doing all this, she got us doing all that, and may not appreciate it, but you will need it in the future. And you will think back, like, oh, my teacher had me doing this. I've done this before. And maybe you don't appreciate that teacher, like the popular, very sweet teacher that, was always like fun. Even though I really talk about falling in love with learning and I talk about how important it is, but it's something I have to keep reminding myself too, because I'm very serious when it comes to education and really challenging kids to do more than maybe other people would have them to do, or people say, oh, that's too much. But I'm like, I'm going to scaffold you there. I'm going to get you there. So please know that when teachers are challenging or pushing your child, that they're not trying to be mean, that they're trying to get them prepared for the future and set them up for success and give them a competitive advantage. And sometimes some parents push back and like, okay, that's too much, or blah blah blah. And other teachers will even do that, who have low expectations for the kids. They have that pobrecito kind of thing going on. And, I'm not about that. I believe your child is brilliant and they could do brilliant things. And I believe that they can struggle through it with my support. I'm right there. I'm not leaving them out in the cold to struggle. I'm right there with them, supporting them. So please, please don't commiserate when your kids are trying to say things are too challenging. Work with your kids and let them know that they're able to do hard things because they're brilliant and they have the ability to do so. So I'm going to take it. So I went to my second, then I went to my fourth grade teacher. I'm going to go to my third grade teacher, Miss Core. Now, I have not talked about her very much. And, but she's like a really short, petite lady. She's really cute. She wore like a really short haircut. And, she really respected us as like, scholars. And, she we lived right, our not we lived, but our school was right by the woods, right? And Miss Nelson, not Miss Nelson, Miss Court would have us go and do like nature walks. And she would hold up in her hand a moose nugget, which is poop, right? She would be like, here is moose excrement. And it can tell you a lot about what the moose eats and their health. And, it was like gross, but at the same time, so like intriguing, right? Like it was and I believe people like would make jewelry out of like I guess like dipped moose excrement, or maybe it wasn't actually moose excrement, but maybe it was like a cast, like something that was in the shape of moose excrement. And they would make stuff out of it, or maybe they made it with the actual stuff. I really don't know. But anyway, she had us looking through microscopes. She had us, really respecting ourselves as scholars. The other thing she had us do was journal. So she's the one who introduced in a real like set gave us a practice. Now, of course, you read about it in the books, you see it on TV where people were like journaling and stuff like that. But she actually had us journaling and was using writing. She had us think about and have a practice of using writing as a confidant, where we could write down our thoughts and untangle some ideas or problems that we were having on paper, right? So I really respected her for that and really carried that practice with me throughout my life. So I really really love Miss Core. She was amazing, and she just taught us so much. Um, Another thing about Miss Core, now I don't remember how what the relation or like whatever it was, but I remember she told me she had her kid in college, and her kid went to college with her and went into classes with her. And do you know, I had my kid in college, and I actually had my daughter in classes with me some days. And I mean, that's something my teacher told me about. Like, she didn't stop and she kept going. Now, I don't know if that was graduate school, so she was older. I was, obviously at the end of my teen years, but I don't know. But she just told me that's something that she did, and I ended up doing something similar in college. And I remember that she was telling me that she did that. So I was like, interesting, right? Um, Something okay, and my last teacher I'm going to talk about is Ms. Byler. She was my 12th grade teacher. So I went to three high schools, and my last high school was at Grant Union High School in Sacramento. That's when I had left home and moved to Sacramento and graduated from there. But there I applied to like almost like 40 scholarships, and I was an independent student. And Miss Byler was the person who, every time I did a scholarship essay, right? Every scholarship wanted an essay. She would revise that essay, edit that essay. And when I'm talking about edit and revise, remember, she was working with a perfectionist. That would be a 13, 5, 6, 7, 13, I don't know, back and forth until she was like, okay, it's ready. But I would give it to her. She'd mark it up. I'd give it back. I'd fix it, give it back. She'd mark it up. I'd give it back to her. She'd mark it up again. It would go back and forth. And she was there for me. She was patient. She did that for me. She was amazing. And so I really, love that she did that. She also introduced me to Zora Neale Hurston. I did not know who that author was. We read Their Eyes Were Watching God in her 12th grade English class. And, I was just amazed by Zora Neale Hurston, still am to this day. And, but she introduced me to that. She also introduced me to something again that I am currently a part of right now, which is the writing project. I'm part of the California Writing Project. I've worked with the National Writing Project, with the UCLA Writing Project, all of that. Um, but so in Sacramento, she had me be a part of a writing project thing, and I have the anthology. I was one of the people who worked, one of the editors on the anthology. And so like I didn't even make the connection to like many years later, like this was a writing project thing, and I'm in the writing project. But it's amazing. And I just recently, working doing a project with a writing project, had met a teacher that works at Grant, where I graduated from high school, and he's like, all of us go to the writing project. So I was like, wow, it's still going. And just something near to dear. It's like means a lot to me as a writer. It with the writing project, we develop ourselves as personal writers so that we can actually speak to how best to teach writing. And so Ms. Byler did that for me. And really all of those teachers put together, really helped me to become the person I am today, the teacher I am today. And I just really want you to know that teacher appreciation is a time when you can just say thank you to the teachers. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but it means a lot if you just write a little note or a letter or something and tell them you appreciate them because it is a work of love. Like we are like pouring into ourselves, like things that we could teach you about life. I was writing something today and someone was I started this podcast to help parents and educators like help kids towards success. And someone's like, success in school? And I was like, no, success in life. The whole point of school is to make sure that our kids are able to function as adults, in the world. And so, no, it's not just about them getting an A in school or a B or passing a class. It's about them being able to take these skills and use it in their lives so they can have a fulfilling life and a happy life. So, I am saying happy teacher appreciation to all the teachers out there. Thank you for what you do. All of my teachers are amazing. I only have a 30-minute podcast usually, and I chose four teachers to talk about today, and that's Mr. Bew, Miss Core, Miss Nelson, and Miss Byler. I love all of you, and I hope you are living your best lives and, carrying on your legacy wherever you go because I'm part of your legacy and I appreciate you. And I hope that you do something today, all of you, educators, parents out there, to give your kids the competitive advantage. Thank you.
Thanks again for supporting the Falling for Learning podcast. New episodes go live every Saturday at 5 p.m. You can watch us on youtube.com at Falling for Learning or listen on all major podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, Audible, Spotify, and much more. For more resources, visit fallinginlovewithlearning.com. We really appreciate you. Have a wonderful week.